Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Reacher Season 3, Episode 2. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So picking up where the last episode left off, obviously Reacher's informing Duffy about the whole Teresa situation. Obviously, it's like she was moved recently. There's no signs of a struggle and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, good, they're keeping her alive. But that doesn't necessarily mean a good thing, because it's like, if they're keeping her alive, and especially knowing Quinn as well as he does, it's like, there's got to be a reason for it. So, and it's kind of what I suggested last episode. I took it more as, well, Reacher's here, so more X factors you don't want to contend with, where especially with everything he's got going on, but more so like less people who know what's going on. Having Teresa being there, it's kind of better. But he also threw Richard in there, so because it's like, once again, how much does Richard know about what his dad does? Is it willing ignorant, or are you just straight up ignorant? You know, that is a very important distinction. But Duffy didn't handle this information well, and I love like the security, the bodyguard dude is just kind of like, oh man, like let me go, I can't, like let me lay down or something. It's like, I can't sleep in this chair, and he wants to know the squirm. Like I felt like he was squirming and preparing for something, and then you have Duffy going, renegade classic kind of good cop bad cop thing of her just playing straight up bad cop and just beating the shit out of him with like a book and stuff like that. It's like, Jesus Christ. I even love when Villanueva and Elliot pulled her off of him, and you're like, yo, go calm down, and the last thing she does is throw the book and it hits his face. I was like, I love that. So, and even later on, just like the comedic bits where he's just like, I don't know anything, and then later on they give him Rita or whatever, and it's just like, I thought I said no peppers, and she's like, oops. He's like, come on, man, I'm hungry. I'm like, what is this bit? I love it. I love there's some comedic stuff, because it does seem like he probably is like who knows? He might be being super tight-lipped, or it might just be a thing of, no, he doesn't know anything, because it's like, you compartmentalize that, where like not only the most trustworthy people know the full picture. Other people, you compartmentalize what they know, so no one outside of like the brain trust knows like the real going ons and stuff. So and obviously we continue with the whole Elliot situation, him being kind of the butt of the joke, especially Magellan is what Duffy nicknames him because of the whole map situation. And even Villanueva's like, oh, come on, like cut him some slack and stuff like that about the whole situation. But it's like, for her, it's like, this is a whole motley crew of like some wandering guy we don't know about, kind of an old guy, a rookie, and it's like, oh, who are you? It's like, well, I'm the stupid idiot to put this all together, like, this squad, because she apparently got Billy because she called in a favor with him. So it's like, we kind of got to make this work, especially because the means under which we're holding the bodyguard is a very, very, it's not even gray area, it's barely legal. They had that whole conversation last episode. So we had Reacher sneaking back into his room. I thought he was going to pull it off by being like, yo, I'm sweaty and stuff because I'm working out. It's like, no, he just came out of the bathroom, immediately gets put to work. Him and Angel go to, and Angel's the talker, and he's just talking about like, oh yeah, like his connections and stuff like that. Even though he got the name Angel Doll, nicknamed it, kind of stuck. And so he also tried out for the military, but he was like, yo, I do much better for myself now, more than I would have if I was a grunt. So, and he also reveals Beck isn't the one in charge here. So I guess Beck is kind of lower management in the grand scheme of things. Like, they don't like take orders for him, which later on kind of, Duffy asks about it. I was like, oh, so do you think it's Quinn? It's like, or does Quinn answer to someone else too? Like, is he kind of lower on the totem pole? Maybe he's higher on the totem pole than Beck, but it might be a situation where Beck isn't as bad as we think he is. It could be a situation that Beck is just in a very unfortunate situation. I wonder if this relationship with Quinn is a byproduct of what happened to his son 5 years ago, him getting kidnapped. Because I brought it up like, oh, it seems like they kind of have an awkward relationship. So I thought like maybe Duffy doesn't care about his son, but he had to sit down with him. It's like, my son, I promise you it will never happen again. He's like, well, it did happen, Dad. He's like, I almost got kidnapped again if it wasn't for Reacher. Like, I thought, like, I'd get more body parts in my mail to you. He's like, don't think like that. Don't think like that ever. It's like, well, I can't help but think that way every time I look in the mirror and see my ear, Dad. So I think he is a person who it's like, he probably would. I don't know whether he made that decision on his own or whether, because he maybe thought like doing the right thing was not paying the ransom, because he thought like, right, because if I pay the ransom, maybe you'll kill my son regardless. So he thought he was doing the right thing until his hand was forced. It might even be a situation of someone else convinced him like it is the right thing to do. Who knows if police were involved or whether he handled that all in-house. But part of me wonders if maybe, much like the whole fake kidnapping now, what if the same thing happened with Quinn in the past? Like, what if that's how this whole dealing happened? Like, the kidnapping and everything, maybe that's also why that could be the connective tissue that brought Quinn and Beck together. It could be that. So like, Quinn could have pulled a Reacher in the FBI squad of like faking a kidnapping and becoming a part of the inner circle or inner workings, or it could be in the aftermath of everything that went down with Richard getting kidnapped, that maybe he just made a deal with the devil and now he kind of is stuck doing all this, but it's all for like, I'm doing all this and I'm protecting my son. It has, I mean, not unless he hired someone like Quinn to take care of the people who are responsible for his son. Like, there's just so much we don't know, and just pure speculation I'm throwing out there, seeing what sticks. So we'll see, but it is something to kind of think about, that it's like, who's to say Reacher and them are the first one to think about kidnapping Richard, and it was kind of a real kidnapping, but it was meant just for the purposes of, and like it's saying, if Quinn and them did that, like it would be for the purposes of pretending like to be the ones who helped you. There's just so much we don't know about that original kidnapping, whether the people who were responsible were found out or are they still out there. So that could be indicative of this theory that I'm crafting. My whole point in that whole diatribe was just kind of saying like, right, Beck might not be the bad guy. It's like, yeah, I'm working with you, but I'm not as bad as I could be. I could be like the guy from season 1 who was kind of mixed up in some shady stuff. It could just as easily be that, where you're just like, your hand was forced and you're like, I'm gonna do some terrible things, but I'm not the worst person involved in this. I'm doing some bad stuff, I'm making some bad decisions, but I'm not the worst human being involved in all of this. We'll have to wait to see. But yeah, so we have Reacher trying to buy time, because Angel and Reacher are trying to like go to the impound at the from the police impound, so they could check the licenses of the vehicles and try and trace this back to the people who were responsible, so they can find out who the actual kidnappers were. It's like, well, the truck is like no ties back to neither the FBI nor Reacher, but the problem is the vehicle that was hit was also confiscated as well, and the whole point was to make it look like, make Reacher believe like, oh my god, it was a grenade that went off instead of just like a flashbang type of situation, right? So it's like, cool, the moment they see the car still intact, that's going to blow up our entire story and kind of ruin all this. So Reacher's trying to buy as much time as possible. I love that he's just standing there with the coffee pot in hand and cup, and even the store owner's like, hey, the guy behind the cash register's like, what the fuck are you doing? And then he's just like, yo, what are you doing? You said you had to piss. He's like, yeah, and then I came to get large coffee because I was thirsty. And I love Angel being like, did you get me one? He's like, no. It's like, oh. So they get there after Duffy tried to like move the car that's pinning in the Audi that is behind all this. And luckily she had enough time to switch the license plate. But the problem is Angel was like, oh, it is weird. Even though it's a different license plate, it can't be the bodyguard car. It's still hitting the same spot. Like that vehicle over there definitely hit this one. It's kind of weird, even though the plates don't match. So it's like, okay, and he let it go. I was like, I immediately did. I was like, there's no way he's letting that go. Either he's being super suspicious of Reacher and he's just not letting on, or what ends up ultimately happening is he couldn't let it go. It's ruminating in the back of his mind. He's a little too smart for his own good, but I guess it's like, I mean, you're in a position you're in right now because you want to ensure the bet. Like, I guess it's like you just have that very suspicious mind of just like they didn't have enough time to like get that whole thing ready, so it kind of just blew up in their face. Which kind of sucks. But for a while, it seemed like, oh, we got away with it. We pulled it off. And poor Reacher went into the room to try and go lay down. But it's like, immediately has like, Beck's like, what are you doing? We got work to do. It's like, we know Reacher's whole point is like, you try to sleep whenever you can. It's just like, okay, let's get to it. I love the whole thing between him and Paulie. And the moment Paulie was like Reacher was like, oh, we'll do this arm wrestling thing. He's like, make a fist, and I'm gonna try and pull. Like, the moment he did that, I was like, I know what you're doing. I was like, you're such a dick. And lo and behold, Paulie ends up hitting himself in the face. I was like, oh, I did the entire time that he's struggling. I was like, oh, you poor bastard, protect your face, and wham. So that kind of went exactly how you thought it would. Eventually, that showdown's going to happen. It's probably going to happen like they're going to probably have at least 2 run-ins where either there's only going to be one time and Paulie's going to be immediately decimated by Reacher, or they're going to duke it out twice. Paulie, for whatever reason, whoops Reacher's ass, and then later on, Reacher whoops his ass. Like, it's one or the other type of situation of scenarios. Either it's going to be one blowout fight, or it's going to be 2, and just, it's going to go one way the first time, and the second fight is going to be, Reacher's win. So we'll see if it ends up going that way. But he gets stuck delivering a vehicle. Then he has to orchestrate with Villy and Duffy to try and see what's inside the vehicle. They look, and it's just Ruggs, had a drug dog and everything. So you're like, okay, so this whole thing was a test in the long run. So, and the big question was, well, could it be that Teresa's body's in there, but the dog would have reacted? So dead or alive, they would have found her body if she was in there. So it is just Ruggs. It was just a loyalty test. So he does make it, has to switch vehicles later on. I love the whole, like, oh, he had to put the lock back on. She's like, oh, have you ever done that before, like soldering it? And he's like, yeah, I've used it on a guy before. She's like, oh, funny. And he looks at her and she's like, oh. But there's some talks between Duffy and Reacher when she talks about, like, right, you told me, like, I forgot the exact wording, but it was kind of like, whatever you're about to, like, you need to prepare yourself for whatever you're thinking might be. No, like, it was basically like, no matter how much you try to prepare yourself for acknowledging, like, there's a chance Teresa's body might be in here, no matter how much you prepare yourself, you're never going to be fully ready. And the reason why Reacher knows that is because he's been in that exact position. Like, he had a CI, someone that worked with him, young and smart, very much like Teresa, and it didn't end well. And immediately Duffy associates this with Quinn. She's like, what did Quinn do to her? And Reacher doesn't say anything. So you're like, interesting. I'm wondering, because I did not rewatch season 2, so I'm like, I don't remember how long ago his 100 the 110th investigation squad, like how long ago that was, his military stuff. I would assume it's around that time, but I'm like wondering if that was like post the 110th, or was that like during that time, and it's just one of those things that, once again, that thing that just, it sat with you and never got resolved. I'm so curious about that. And what did Quinn do? Because my thought was like, oh, Quinn sold out some information that got... I mean, to be fair, he sold information to nations and stuff like that. So, and if she was kind of like an undercover CI type of situation, her identity could be revealed. So it could be like Quinn is responsible in that regard. Or maybe it's a thing of he is directly responsible because he killed her in a very brutal way, and Reacher felt like he failed this person. Because obviously he takes it to heart the most when he feels, he always takes responsibility for people, and who knows what his relationship with this person was. Like, maybe it was something more where it's like, oh, you got close to someone you shouldn't have gotten close to, like a CI type of thing. Or maybe it just could be just the pure obligation of, you were under my protection and I failed you. So we'll see. He also calls up Neely, which I should also reference. I did not know this. I just happened to know it because sometimes I look on Wikipedia. Like, if I Google, like, when I'm looking for the episode titles, usually I Google list of insert TV show episodes. That's typically how I get the episode titles. Sometimes that doesn't automatically pop up, so I have to go to like Wikipedia or IMDb to get the episode titles. I kind of don't like going to IMDb because I'm like, it's such a stupid thing, but I don't like seeing the scores of episodes. I don't know. It's like, I hate stuff getting graded. It's a stupid idiosyncrasy that I have. I'm not going to get into it. I have my little weird quirks, but sometimes I just go to straight up like Prime Video to like find a episode type. It's a whole thing. My whole point was I did not know that there's actually a Neely spinoff in the making, in production or being developed. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. But yeah, Reacher calls out to her and it's like, oh, like look into these names, some of the people that work for Beck. And so it's like, okay. And she's trying to figure out because he's like, right, can't have you calling me. It's a long story, and she's like, well, whatever it is, like I've got some free time on my hand. I could help you. But he chooses not to because I guess he knows if anyone's going to know in it, because Neely knows Reacher better than anyone else. And so she kind of sees through him, and probably if he references Quinn, like she will know how important this is. So he doesn't want to tell her anything because he knows like she won't. Because I guess like maybe it's also this thing of he wants to keep Neely as far away from this because I'm sure that person, it's like if I let Neely get close to this, he's so afraid of that repeat situation happening. And just I don't know if any of last season is kind of playing a role in that decision for him or not. Regardless of it, Reacher is very much if I have to, I'll work with people, but it's like this being such a personal thing to him. It's like he doesn't want to drag Neely into like his personal vendetta, but I think because Neely's ride or die for Reacher. So it's like, yo, I got your back, bro. But he doesn't want her involved in this, but she will get involved. So we'll see how that plays out. Cause I'm sure like once, because he's like, oh, I'll contact you in a day or two. It's like she's probably going to try and figure out what he's up to on her end and then probably get involved on that front. Who knows? But then you have Reacher dropping off the other vehicle because he has to go back to the warehouse. And lo and behold, who's there? Angel. I didn't know if this was like a setup, like Duke and them were about to come up. But I'm like, it's too early in the season for them to kind of find out about him. It could still be a test of trust of like, we're suspicious of you. And, Reacher has to bob and weave to kind of like divert their suspicions. But it's Angel who has the suspicions and he hasn't confided in anybody, and he's poking holes in the stories, and Reacher's just being like, "Yo, it's got to be this." He's always kind of got an answer for everything that Angel brings up. It's like, yeah, he might seem like a goofball, but he is pretty smart and figure like he smells bullshit and is unraveling the lies and stuff. And ultimately, he's like, oh, well, let's see what Duke has to say about it. And in that moment, he slams his head against something that was sticking out up on the desk and pierces his head and kills him. You're just like, oh boy. He's just like more annoyed than anything. Like, Jesus Christ. He's like, it's basically almost like, why'd you make me do that? Now I have to deal with you. So I just crumple up your body and stick it under the damn desk. It's like, I don't have enough time to clean up the blood. Duke's up there blasting the horn. If I don't hurry out, lo and behold, he's going to bust it and come in here, and it's going to be a whole thing. So, but obviously it's like the whole like breaking his legs just to kind of get them under the desk. I was like, poor Angel. Which I love that when Duke's like, oh, what took you so long? He was like, Angel loves to run his mouth. Doesn't know how to not run his mouth or something like that. Doesn't know how to... loves to talk or something like that, which I'm like, there's layers to that, because it's like, yeah, because Angel kept running his mouth with his suspicions. It's like, rather than keeping that to himself and bringing it up to Duke or the others, like he confronted Reacher about it, which was kind of a big no-no. So it's like, probably kept quiet about it, you'd still be alive. So, but it worked to Reacher's benefit because now he's able to nip that in the bud, but it's still like, all right, so how do I cover that up? So it's like, I guess the only choice he had is he'll have to get like Duffy and her squad to clean that up for him. But it's like, what do you do when they eventually go, where the hell is Angel? Why haven't we been able to contact him? It's like, you're going to probably have to keep his phone active, but make it seem like he went off the grid or bailed or something. I don't know, like how you're going to, I mean, there's multiple ways to cover that up, but how long do you have that you can kind of get away with that? So also, are they going to be comfortable with like, okay, I mean, we're already crossing the line with the gray area, and once again, not even just gray, barely legal stuff that they're doing that, yeah, it's like, oh, you're going to help dispose of a body for Reacher? Like, that's going to be kind of crossing a line, but it's for the greater good type of situation. It's just like, well, once again, it's like you start trailing down that darker and darker path, and how far down that path are you willing to go in the grand scheme of things? So that's going to be something I'm sure Duffy and her squad will start questioning. I can see her crossing more and more lines, but like, Elliot and Villanueva like kind of being like, whoa, we're kind of, they're already kind of like, whoa, this is kind of crazy where we're at with this whole situation. So we'll have to wait to see where the next episode ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.